Hi, folks. Thank you for joining us in the Vermont Wild Kitchen.
Usually this time of year, we would be doing cooking seminars like this live.
The ramps come up during the springtime, and you can find them under deciduous trees, and they really like that full sunlight in the spring when the leaves aren't out.
This is a rear shank, so it came off one of the rear legs. Down here would be the bone that goes to the hoof, and then up here the rest of the leg.
This is my favorite part of any fish, is the cheek. It is just tender, sweet, succulent. It's the best bite. I'll take that over a loin, a belly, a tail any day. And there's a shame there's only two of them, and they're so small in a fish.
Here's an example. There is this really beautiful brick red mushroom with this really gorgeous gloss and white all along the edge.
What we're really trying to do here is just bring you into our kitchens and show you just how easy and just how delicious it can be to not only cook with wild ingredients, but also pair those up with the farm fresh ingredients that can be found throughout Vermont. All right, welcome everybody to the Vermont Wild Kitchen. My name is Shane Rogers, and I am so glad that you are joining us today for this excellent episode. We have Jessee Lawyer, who is a Missisquoi Abenaki chef, and this is our quarterly feature. The Vermont Wild Kitchen presents the Dawnland Kitchen. Today, Jessee is going to be cooking up a wonderful meal full of spring turkey and foraged goods that were found during the hunt. And throughout this episode, you're going to be finding just fun ways to pair up these delicious ingredients that can be found right here in Vermont. As you all may know, the Vermont Wild Kitchen films these episodes every third Thursday of the month with the goal of really trying to connect these two worlds of wild food and cultivated food, of which there's abundance here in this wonderful state. So as always, we want to give a shout out to Rural Vermont and Vermont Fish and Wildlife, who help make this show possible. And I encourage you all to take a minute, explore their websites, join their newsletters, check out their social media. And I just put that comment in the box. And a special shout out to King Arthur Baking Company, who is helping to make this show possible with a small, by being able to provide small stipends to our chefs who come on to the episode. So check them out as well. And then finally, before we get into it tonight, if you want to stay updated on the Vermont Wild Kitchen, we encourage you to join the Vermont Wild Kitchen newsletter, and you can drop your email in the link that's provided. So again, folks, we encourage you to interact with the show, drop your questions, drop your suggestions, drop your comments, and please feel free to share this widely. And without further ado, I'm excited to introduce Jessee, who is going to be cooking with us. And Jessee, tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing.
Well, thanks for having me again. So we have wild turkey breast. This was from my uncle last year. This year was my first time turkey hunting, albeit unsuccessful in getting a bird. We were successful in getting some wild foraged goods, which we'll also be showing tonight. Got ramps while hunting, pheasant back mushrooms, and then also a couple other items. We had morels that we picked and fiddleheads. So we'll be showing that tonight. And then we're going to put that all into a fried rice. So nothing too extravagant, but tasty and delicious. So
I think that's one of the best parts about all these ingredients is that you can make them into simple dishes that just taste amazing. And I know you said you are unsuccessful turkey hunting. I feel like people see turkeys all over the place, but until you get out there in the field, it's really hard to imagine just how difficult it is to hunt turkeys. They have amazing eyesight, and wherever you think they are, they probably aren't. But we do have some great, I know Fish and Wildlife has some great folks on their staff and as volunteers who are helping people take them out. How was your experience this year? Did you actually get any gobbles, or was it just sitting in a field?
I went with a friend of mine, Bradley, and I went out twice. I only got out twice this year. The first time he had roosted some birds the night before, so we snuck in about 3:30 in the morning, set up around 4. Man. As we were setting up, there were like some little chirps, and we're like, okay, now we gotta be quiet. We're right next to one. He thought it was a hen. It ended up being, we were set up about 50 yards away from a gobbler, 3 of them actually. And yeah, I just never realized how hard it was to stand still with a shotgun for an hour and a half, just waiting for them to come into you. And then they don't ever come into you. So yeah, it was exciting. Hearing the gobbles that early in the morning was very exciting. So.
And that's the small reward, right? You may not harvest the bird, but it is so cool to interact with them. Mm-hmm. And I had my first real experience this year by myself interacting with a bird and just hearing them call back and forth.
Yeah.
And to know that you're almost there, but maybe not there. And there are people out there who are experts, but I give them all the kudos in the world because it is not an easy thing to be able to call those birds in by any means.
No, and that's one thing I learned this year was kind of what I'm listening for in calling myself next year for calling in a bird. Like that, I had no idea like what you want to sound like. You can watch YouTube videos, until you're blue in the face, but until you actually get there and listen to it, it's a whole different story.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the last thing, when it just comes to turkey hunting, like folks like getting out there, I was so nervous the first time I went, and I had a great mentor, but it really is just getting out there and kind of sitting in the field, but also getting to know the animal, which I think is what makes wild food so interesting to me and should be so accessible to folks. Because like you were saying, you're learning. You're learning the calls, you're hearing it, and it's just this process and this relationship that you're building. And even though this food's from your uncle, like he went through that. It makes it that much more special to be eating something. Just like it is when you know the person who grew it, if you're buying farm fresh food too.
Right, exactly. You know where your food came from. The one thing that I found very interesting in turkey hunting is, you drive along the road, you'll see flocks of 30, 40 birds. Like, there's no way these things are that hard to kill. But when you're in the woods in the morning, it's a whole different ball game. It's not a flock of birds in the field. So I found that very interesting as well. But
I am sure there are some people sitting here laughing at us, but you know what? We'll get there eventually.
I mean, I came out successful, just not with a bird.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So what are you? How are we doing this today?
Okay, so first we're gonna sear off the turkey breast. This will probably make about enough for 2 to 3 people. If you're wanting to replicate this at home in any kind of way, just double the recipe for a larger group. But so far I've taken just half the breast, slice it in half. I'm gonna cube it up. I've got a cast iron skillet heating up right here. For the turkey, we're gonna sear it in my favorite, bear fat. So
these episodes are sponsored by Bear Fat, the Dawnland Kitchen episodes for sure.
We should be for sure. So right here, I'm gonna dice up the turkey breast and get that ready to sear off, and then we're gonna move on to the vegetables, and then it's very quick, as long as all the prep is done. So a little kitchen magic. The rice I cooked earlier, just stuck it in the freezer for it to cool down. For fried rice, rice is best overnight. Let it chill in your fridge, uncovered, dry out. That's going to yield the best fried rice. Also, if you're like Chinese food and you're getting white rice with meals and you want to make something yourself the next day, that's great as well.
So what's the difference, Jesse, between a wild turkey breast and the turkey breast, say, that folks are picking up in their grocery store?
So texture is going to be a big one. Wild turkeys, they're very active birds. They're foraging for their foods. They're building muscles. They're flying from the ground to the roosts. They're active. They're active in their lifestyle. It's not like a farm raised bird where they're getting food brought to them. So it's going to be a little firmer. The taste will be a little stronger, but still similar to domesticated turkeys. But I think the big thing folks are going to notice in the breast is the texture.
Yeah. And if, people maybe don't understand or don't know, I know I had to learn, but breaking down a bird can seem super intimidating, but it's really easy once you start getting into it. And we had a wonderful episode with Keith from Flatlander Farm here in Vermont, where he really went through the basics of how to break down. This was poultry. It was chicken, but basically the same tenets for wild turkey, for any other type of game birds, or anything else that you are maybe picking up in the grocery store.
Yeah, I mean, all birds are pretty much the same. 2 wings, 2 legs, a head, 2 breasts. They break down pretty much the same, just on a different scale.
And it's relatively easy chops. And where's your cast iron at? What temperature are you having it on?
It's right under medium.
Nice.
So that's the...
And
sorry, that burner is hot, my hot one, so I'm not going full medium on it. So it's just a little bit under. All right.
And the nice thing about the cast iron is that it distributes all that heat too. So
exactly. For the actual the fried rice, we're going to use a fry pan, and I'll explain the difference, why I'm using that versus a cast iron later. I might turn this up a hair. I'm not going to season this turkey breast because I'll be using tamari when I'm building the fried rice. So that's where I'll get my seasoning. So I'm just going to keep this plain. And that's ready. So we're going to sear.
And do folks have to worry about it being tough all by doing it this way, or are you?
What's that?
Is there any worry about this being tough? I think like wild game sometimes has that misconception, but also just cooking chicken this way. I don't know how many folks actually cook chicken or poultry diced up.
Right. And I mean, this could be cooked whole and diced up after. You could brine it first if you're worried about it being tough, but I would just cut it small and you're good.
Yeah, that sounds delicious.
All right, so we're going to sanitize the board.
Still the same processes as you would use with anything else. And while we're talking about turkey, I know that some folks maybe aren't hunters, or they don't know anybody who goes out turkey hunting, but there are a ton of great farms throughout Vermont who are raising domesticated birds and doing it in really wonderful ways. And the fact is, prices are going up and farmers do need support, and there are ways for you to reserve your birds ahead of time. So sorry, I think we're having some trouble with the Vermont Wild Kitchen Facebook page and posting, so I'm sorry if none of these links are going through, folks. But you can do early deposits on birds, and it helps keep them fed and cared for, so you will be able to help others get those birds too come fall time. Of course, there's technical difficulties. There never is not.
What's going on with it?
I think they're just the comments aren't going through. Something about a security check, but so I apologize. We'll drop comments in later if you're all watching. Feel free to keep dropping your questions or thoughts in, and we'll be able to answer them live too. Is that just a carrot?
That's just a carrot, a small dice it. The smaller, the better with the carrot.
I think the thing I love about fried rice, I always make this as like a lunchtime dish, is It's so straightforward. And you can throw just about anything in it that you want, from veggies to meat. It's a great leftover dish. And it's something that just tastes delicious and is made pretty quickly, which is wonderful.
And most people have all these ingredients in their house already, whether it's the freezer or the pantry, so it's really accessible.
So, what else are you going to be adding into the fried rice, Jesse? I'm going to stop trying to figure out the Facebook thing.
What's that?
What else are you adding into the fried rice for the dish?
What's putting in it?
Yep.
So carrots, ramp bulbs, those would be the onions, fiddlehead, pheasant back mushrooms, tamari, oyster sauce, sesame oil, and an egg.
Wonderful. And you found a lot of those ingredients while out turkey hunting this May, right? The fiddleheads, the ramps, the pheasant backs. How was that experience, kind of being able to pick those up in the woods? What were you looking for?
So,
Did you just stumble upon them?
no, as you're actively, walking and navigating your environment, you happen to see things. And so one of the things we saw were pheasant back mushrooms. And then we just kept our eyes out. We saw another. And we split them up. And we came on a patch of ramps. And I had already harvested a bunch early in the season with my kids. But when you see them, why not pick a couple, So those are going in there as well.
How do you enjoy foraging with your kids? I feel like not a lot of folks. I feel like there's some folks that don't feel comfortable, right? Eating wild foods with their kids or like teaching them about it. How is it with your sons when you take them out? Is there the curiosity, the inquisitiveness? Are they super seers? Like, are they just picking stuff out?
Yeah, so they pick up on it very well. This was the third year that my oldest son went out foraging ramps with me. We have a little spot on a friend's property that we tend to. And my youngest came for the first time this year. He was right into it, digging up ramps and shaking them off of dirt and put them in the bucket. And actually this year, my oldest, we've been looking at mushrooms for the past few years. We've never found any together. We're out back of our house. I was like, hey, John, you see any mushrooms? He's like, what, like this one? And he points to the ground, and there is a morel.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah.
Now that is so lucky. And
So
like, I don't know,
the
joy that you feel. I mean, as someone who loves searching for mushrooms, the joy that I feel every time I find something like a morel or like a choice edible is just overwhelming. So I imagine how excited he was, but also probably how excited you were knowing what it was.
Yeah, I was more excited that he found it. Like it was right there. We've been looking for 3 years and we finally found them.
That's amazing.
So these are the pheasant back mushrooms that I found. I turned these into jerky. I'm just not a huge fan of the flavor. They're really woody and earthy. It's almost a little too overpowering for me. So I marinated these in maple, some soy sauce, and then some homemade chili crunch that I made.
Yum.
Let that marinate, I believe, for 2 days and dehydrated them. So these are going to get chopped up, put in there as well.
Amazing.
Be a little spice for the rice.
Do you have a dehydrator or did you do it in your oven?
I have a dehydrator, yeah.
Yeah. And for folks who don't, you can always do it. Pop your oven on low, put it on a rack, let that air circulate around, and keep an eye on it. Wondering what a chili crunch is, because that does sound amazing.
Well, before I explain that, so if you do it in your oven, take like a wooden spoon and prop open your door. That way the moisture can escape as well.
Yes. Yeah. Awesome.
So chili crunch is red chili flakes cooked in oil with shallots and garlic. It's a little more involved in that, but that's the basic recipe.
God, that sounds amazing too. Do you find being able to cook any of this with your kids too? Do they have interest after like foraging the morels or something after that? Like, are they chomping to get in the kitchen, or they just like when you cook it?
They have tried everything. They're not big fans of it. They're not big fans of it. So.
All right. Well, at least they're trying it.
Even the ramps and fiddleheads, unless it's cooked in something, they're not huge fans.
I guess that is the way it goes, right? The ones with the best eyes, maybe not always sharing the same taste buds.
Yeah.
But eventually.
They do like bear fat, though, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I can imagine the bear fat popcorn is very popular in the household.
All right. So now that I have some ramps cut for the onions, they've been pickled, some pheasant back mushrooms and carrots, and then we're gonna start building our rice. So for the fry pan, I want something I get super high heat on and be able to toss my ingredients. So the walls on the cast iron are just a little too straight up.
Yeah.
On a fry pan, they're more angled, or they're more curved, or they're curved for sauteing. So, and I can get a good high heat and a good sear on that.
What does the high heat do? Like, why are you looking for that high heat?
Give the vegetables a little bit of color.
Yeah.
You know, that classic fried rice, that nice like brown on the carrot, the brown on the onion. That'll be achieved through the high heat.
And you got your bear fat.
A little more bear fat. So I've turned the heat off down, or turn the heat off on the turkey. It's all crisp up, all cooked through. You want to cook all your poultry through, even if it's wild. And you just want to make sure you can, if you don't have bear fat, you can use any high temp cooking oil. We're also going to use butter in this recipe.
I'm sure the bear fat gives it that like extra layer of flavor, though, that you just is pretty unmatched.
Yeah. I think fat should be its own flavor.
Where were you hunting and foraging this year, and like how did you go about getting access to the land that you were on?
So I hunted in Charlotte. It's where my friend Bradley, he has permission, he lives, and he knows a lot of people there. So there was a couple of farms that we hunted, and that's how I had access to those hunting spots.
Yeah, and I feel like that's one of the things, one of the biggest hurdles, right, is like trying to figure out where to go hunting or where to look for wild ingredients like mushrooms or fiddleheads or ramps or what have you. And of course, you should always be harvesting sustainably, but especially so, there's so many public places. There's so many places that are open wildlife management areas, different parks, and you're going to want to check in on local regulations and everything along those lines. But it's a great place to go explore a lot of those public areas. And right, you like you were saying, Jesse, like just asking people. I think I've gone hunting a couple times where we've just been able to pull up and see the owner of the property and asking if we can be on that property for the afternoon. And they might say no, but a lot of the times they do say yes, which is a really wonderful and nice way to make an introduction.
Yeah. And it doesn't hurt to ask. You'll never know unless you don't ask, you know?
Exactly.
So, I mean, this year, throughout winter until now, I've been spending a lot more time on public lands, you know, just because the access is easier and it's all of our lands. We pay for, you know, the access to that, so why not use it?
I am right there with you. I absolutely love the wildlife management areas, especially to go hunting on. I know, I'm sure I'm like everybody where you don't have like a ton of access to acres and acres of private property, but the wildlife management areas, there are definitely some that are pretty remote. There's not a ton of people out there, and there's lots of great hunting to be had. And even if you don't like hunting, like, or you're not looking to do that, there's just lots of great exploring to be had. And you can find wildlife management areas from Vermont Fish and Wildlife's page.
How to get a new pair of tongs.
No. So you're just adding all the ingredients right into the hot oil and the bear fat?
Yeah. So I did the carrots first because those take the longest to cook. Then I did the onions, the pheasant back mushrooms, and then the turkey.
And eventually everybody can get as good as Jessee at flipping vegetables and turkey in their frying pans the more they make those.
We're hiring too, so if you want to learn, come see me.
If you want personal lessons from Jessee where he pays you, check out Sweetwater's.
So, and then now I just added the fiddleheads.
And those were pickled, right?
I'm going to add about 2 cups of rice.
Nice. So what are you going to be spicing this with? I see some soy sauce.
Yep. So it's about 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. Oyster sauce.
Delicious.
If you're a vegetarian, which I don't know why you're watching this show, no offense. A lot of bear fat. You can omit this. If you want to just do a vegetable fried rice, just omit the oyster sauce and the butter. But that's about 2 tablespoons of oyster sauce. Just a couple shots of sesame oil. Just gonna add some more rice.
And you actually cook the sesame oil rather than drizzle it at the end?
What's that?
You cook off the sesame oil rather than drizzle it at the end?
Yeah, I do it in the mix. And it's
Nice.
just a touch.
I know it can be so powerful. How do you think about your ingredients when you're cooking with them? Like, I mean, you're using a lot of wild ingredients, right, from the actual hunt that you found, the time that you spent around the actual season. Does that give you a little bit of like outline for what you're thinking about with dishes, or what do you think that adds in when you're able to include some of that like really fresh seasonality into the dishes that you're making?
So yeah, I mean, I like to cook with them both fresh and preserved. So, you know, at the beginning of the season, that'll dictate like how I'm using them fresh. So, you know, with the ramps, like a lot of pestos, you know, soups, and then I pickle a bunch. I pureed a bunch in bear fat. I even dried some, so those I'll use throughout the years to like enhance, you know, whether it's something that I've hunted or something that I've grown or that was grown and given to me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that's, I mean, one of the nice things about, again, you can harvest sustainably, but if there's an abundance, you can always put some up, and there's so many ways to preserve. Now that I'm thinking about it, we should do a preservation episode of some sort on the Vermont Wild Kitchen, showing some canning techniques. We had somebody can meat for one of the in-persons that we did before the pandemic started, which was mind-blowing.
You what?
He canned, the guy canned some meat, some like wild meat. It was It was wild, and it was delicious. It tasted like stewed meat. I was very skeptical, but
how did that process happen? Was it just meat in mason jars and pressure canned?
Yeah, and it was raw, and it was, like I said, I was very skeptical of it, but it ended up being very delicious.
Wow. All right, so now I'm just going to make a little hole in the center. Got about 2 tablespoons of butter.
We had someone say like Brunswick stew, which is, yes, exactly like Brunswick stew. But it was just the meat portion. That was the wildest thing. It wasn't all the other fun vegetables that get added into Brunswick stew.
Right. just gonna do 1 egg in here. You can do 2. Just right in the center and start scrambling.
So simple and so easy. And you got so much flavor packed into there and so many delicious vegetables, and add that to the wild turkey. The creaminess of the egg, it's just sounds and looks amazing.
And like I said earlier, I mean, besides the wild ingredients, most everybody has these ingredients in their pantry or their freezer, so very exciting.
Yeah, and you can definitely use all the farm fresh ingredients too that you're finding. I know places have chickens up. There's carrots from last season. Some are maybe already growing, being pulled early. It would be really early right now. But, and again, you can add just about anything to this. I made some fried rice with early season kale the other week. It was just delicious to add that all in. Give it a nice mix and a heave together.
Yep.
Look at that. And that was maybe start to finish less than 30 minutes for that whole entire thing. And like you were saying, you could definitely scale it up very easily.
I mean, it doesn't look the prettiest, but it's going to taste delicious. So.
Oh, it looks amazing. That is amazing. And
there's
folks,
definitely enough
again,
for 2 or 1 person and some leftovers. So.
Yeah, it depends on how hungry you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would definitely say, you know, this could be done with any meat. I mean, it could be done with wild turkey, chicken. It could be done with squirrel, deer, really whatever you have out there as well that you want to experiment with. That's the fun thing about fried rice. Really, you can add anything and any of the ingredients that are there. Jessee, was there anything else that you wanted to add before we sign off for this episode?
No, I just think have fun with the ingredients that you find and hunt. You know, give honor to them, use them to the fullest. You know, this was just the turkey breast, but make sure if you are hunting turkeys, you're not just breasting them out. You're using the thighs, you know, the legs. You know, with the proper cooking techniques, those are some of the best meat you can ever taste in your life. So just use the best.
Definitely.
You know, don't harvest if you're going to waste. That goes for foraged items too. So I mean, just get out there and have fun.
Yeah, and keep your eyes peeled, right? Because you may be going out trying to do a hunt and you might be unsuccessful in there, but you could be successful bringing in some of those delicious forage ingredients as well. So, Jessee, thank you so much as always. It's a pleasure to have you on, to get invited into your kitchen, to see what you're cooking and to hear what you have to say. And for folks who are tuning in, thank you for joining us in the Vermont Wild Kitchen, and tune in. Maybe next month we're seeing if we're going to be doing an episode, but check us out on Facebook and also sign up for our newsletter, and we'll be giving you all updates on what the next couple of episodes are going to hold. We're very excited for them. And with that, I wish everybody a good night, and I hope you all enjoy what is an amazing amount of sunshine. I think one of the longest days of the year. So I hope everyone has a good one.